Hi everyone, my name is Mari Haga and I used biodegradability and tensile strength tests to try and find an alternative material for petroleum-based plastics in the dental industry. If you've ever been in the dentist chair, plastic covers all of the surfaces that you see. From the light to the chair to the tools, everything needs to be as sterile as possible for every patient that walks through the doors. Every year, 680 million patient barriers and 1.7 billion sterilization pouches are generated by the dental industry alone. Patient barriers are a necessity, and the clear plastic ones make up the large majority of those being used. But these large sheets of plastic are being replaced with every patient, which amounts to a lot of plastic pollution. The plastic barriers that are being used in the dental office are made of polyethylene, a hydrocarbon compound that most disposable plastics are made from. The problem with polyethylene is that it's a non-biodegradable material, meaning that it's not able to be broken down by any natural process. Small pieces of this wasted plastic, commonly referred to as microplastics, are emitted into our waterways and disrupt ecosystems and food chains. My research found that one of three materials could be a possible alternative to conventional petroleum-based plastics currently being used in order to help the ongoing issue of plastic pollution. My research focused on dental chair coverings due to their single use and minimal splashing barrier needs. By finding an alternative to the medical barriers, waste could be reduced just by making the material more biodegradable. For my project, I tested a cornstarch-based bioplastic, recycled paper, and oxo-biodegradable plastic as possible alternatives for PET plastics. To combat the overuse of PET plastics, bioplastics in general are typically made from natural resources, mainly a type of cellulose and starch, and have similar properties in both look and performance as its counterpart. Recycled paper is a well-known alternative for plastics, and so the tensile strength tests were the focus for this material. Oxo-biodegradable plastics are known to be biodegradable and have been used for many plastic substitutes as a newer material in the industry. We wanted to test these materials against the petroleum-based plastics currently being used. So my research question was, do these materials hold up to the biodegradability and tensile strength tests? And if so, could one of them be a possible alternative to conventional petroleum-based plastics in the healthcare industry? I chose two tests based on what I saw as major qualities that a barrier plastic should have when it comes to the large-scale healthcare industry. The material would need to be strong enough to hold up to a regular person's movement while they would be in the chair in the case of the seat cover, which is why I tested tensile strength. I also wanted to observe the environmental impact of the materials once they aren't being used anymore, which is why biodegradability was tested. Using the Pascal materials testing machine, the material strength is measured using two clamps that hold the material taut while you slowly raise one of the sides until the sampled material breaks. A tensile tester is used to see how a material behaves under stress. In material science, stress is the amount of force that atoms experience at a given point in the material. Each material will be cut into variously sized strips, increasing by 2 centimeters in length. The data collection stopped, preceding the breaking of the material into two pieces, or following the necking for a significant amount of time. Results from the tensile tests were staggered but consistent in regards to the means of percent elongation before deformation and overall strength. Necking occurred in materials that are able to stretch as the force pulling the material apart goes to the material molecule slipping. For my experiment, the oxo-biodegradable plastic and the petroleum-based plastic necked, which is indicated by the yellow stars. From the three different sized pieces of each material, tensile strength was determined through the mean percent elongation before deformation and the mean maximum strength. Deformation is when the first molecules of the material begin to break. PET plastic had the highest percentage of elongation before deformation at 0.666%. Following was the oxo biodegradable plastic and its mean elongation of 0.447%, the cornstarch-based bioplastic at 0.350%, and lastly, the paper at 0.0186%. Maximum strength was determined with recycled paper being the highest maximum of 36.94 MPa. Preceding was the PET plastic with 30.00 MPa, the oxo biodegradable plastic at 22.22 MPa, and the cornstarch-based bioplastic with 15.29 MPa. Taking an example from Kelly Mukai's biodegradability test, the materials were cut into squares, varying in size before burying them in the fourth floor Sullivan Garden for a time period of a week. They were 3 inches apart and placed upright in the soil. The average mass loss of the plastics were then calculated. As a result, from the biodegradability tests, my original hypothesis of the cornstarch-based bioplastic having the highest percent mass loss held true. The biodegradability of regular cornstarch-based bioplastics is high in general, being able to biodegrade within days. This held true with my research, as the cornstarch-based bioplastic had 69.43% mass loss. Following that was recycled paper with 8.82% mass loss, the oxo biodegradable plastic with 3.19%, and the petroleum-based plastic with 0.014%. What placed the error was that dirt was stuck onto all of the materials after pulling them out of the garden. They were all thoroughly rinsed with water, but there was still dirt on the bioplastic and paper when performing the final masses, which decreased their percent mass losses. Based on my research analyzing biodegradability tests and tensile strength tests, I found that an oxo biodegradable plastic would be the best choice for a polyethylene alternative in the dental industry. The oxo biodegradable plastic had an average of 3.19 mass loss over the time period, a higher biodegradability rate than the petroleum-based plastic that had an average of 0.014% mass loss. Biodegradability tests simulate the plastic after their single use in a real-world environment, a time that is currently being overlooked in the making of these material barriers. As for the tensile test, the oxo biodegradable plastic experienced necking, very similar to the PET plastic. This is useful when thinking about the healthcare industry and the other plastic sheet barriers that need to be able to handle significant stretching and stress. The next best alternative would be the recycled paper. Since the recycled paper had the second highest of the 4% mass losses, it has potential to become a more sustainable barrier material compared to polyethylene. The mass production of the recycled paper also makes it easily accessible and realistic to the purpose of this research. Recycled paper also had a higher tensile strength than the cornstarch-based bioplastic with its highest maximum strength, therefore making it the next best alternative of the barrier materials tested. I learned 2 important lessons by doing honors independent research this year. The first was to plan ahead and to plan with detail. Trial and error with the making of the bioplastic taught me to plan ahead and make sure that everything was in order before beginning. I made around 4 to 5 different batches of the cornstarch-based bioplastic, testing the different thicknesses and viscosities of the plastic. I failed a couple times due to poor planning, learning that I can use a stir bar and put more than 1 pan in the incubator. The second lesson was to persevere. The first version of my project included a bacterial penetration test inspired by the ISO 22610 standard test method, which is a method created to determine a material's resistance to wet bacterial penetration. By not submitting my specific bacteria that would be tested, the bacterial penetration test was not approved by the SRC in time. Therefore, shifting my topic from a one material study with 3 tests to a 3 material study with 2 of the original tests. This taught me to persevere and research the new materials. My advice to future students would be to stay organized and be flexible. Staying organized will ultimately help in the long run because gathering all of the sources and making sure to turn in prep journals will require you to stay on top of the work. Being flexible with the project chosen will open many opportunities and change and adjustments. Like I said before, I had to change my topic in the middle of the year, but by being flexible and open, it made the process go a lot smoother. I would first like to thank Dr. Chan for being my mentor for my project. Your feedback and guidance has truly helped me learn more than I ever could about bioplastics and organization. Thank you, Ms. Sailors, for helping me test the different tensile strengths for each material. Your knowledge on material science and your way of teaching really helped me fully understand the workings of the machine and the complicated tensile graphs. Thank you, Dr. Milliken, for helping me in the rooftop garden for the biodegradability tests. Your flexibility and kindness really helped me when I needed to check up on the materials and mask them. Thank you, Kelly McKay, for sending me your recipe for the bioplastic itself. You're the best. Lastly, I would like to thank my friends and my family for supporting me this whole year and keeping my spirits up. Thank you.